Just think for a second about the products you use every single day. The soap, cleaners, shampoo, we see them on the shelf, we use them, we throw them out. But we almost never think about the massive system behind them, or, the hidden risks that could make them vanish. Okay, let's start with a really simple question. If you happen to have a bottle of shampoo nearby, grab it and look at the ingredients list. If not, just picture one in your head. What do you think is the #1 ingredient in there by a long shot?
Yeah, it's not a trick question. It's water. For so many household and personal products, water is the fundamental ingredient, right? It's the base that holds everything else together. Seems totally harmless, but here's where it gets interesting.
What if that biggest ingredient is also one of their biggest financial risks? Seriously, for the huge global companies making all this stuff, that simple basic ingredient, water, is turning into a massive, massive business challenge. You see, for the household and personal products industry, water isn't just an ingredient. It's a huge potential weak spot. The availability of water directly affects a company's ability to operate, to manufacture, and at the end of the day, to make any money. So, why is water suddenly such a big deal? Well, it's not just the main ingredient in the bottle. It's also absolutely critical for cooling machinery in the factories where they make it. And while corporate demand for it is super high, the global supply is getting tighter and tighter. It's kind of like a perfect storm of population growth, cities getting bigger, and, of course, climate change. It all means that the water these companies have always relied on just isn't a guarantee anymore. So when we say water risk, what does that actually mean for a company's bottom line? It's not just one single thing. It's actually more like a giant wave that can hit them from 3 totally different directions. So first, you've got the physical, environmental constraints. We're talking about trying to run a factory in a region that is literally running out of water. Second, there are the regulatory and financial problems. Things like the cost of water going through the roof, or government stepping in and restricting access. And finally, you have community and reputational risks. That's when the local people get upset and start challenging a company's right to use a shared and scarce resource. And look, this isn't just some abstract idea. This is a direct quote from an organization called the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, or SASB for short. They spell it out in black and white. If a company messes up its water strategy, its entire production line could be at risk. This really shows you that we're talking about a serious financial problem here. Okay, so water is such a gigantic risk. How do investors and the companies themselves even begin to measure and manage it? I mean, you can't manage what you don't measure, right? This is exactly where having a standardized framework becomes absolutely crucial. And here they are, the SASB standards. The best way to think about them is like a Rosetta Stone for sustainability. They create a common language so companies can talk about risks like water scarcity in a way that investors can actually understand and use to make real financial decisions. So what are they really? Well, at their core, the SASB standards are a set of 77 different rulebooks, one for each specific industry. They're designed to get companies to report on the sustainability issues that could genuinely hit their bottom line. And this is the real game changer. It moves sustainability from being just, good PR to being a core part of a company's financial health. All right, that's the big picture, but for a company that makes shampoo, what does this actually mean they have to do? What specific info do they have to lay out on the table for all of us to see? The standards really boil it down to 2 key things. First, you've got the hard numbers. How much water is the company actually taking and using, especially in places that are already struggling with water shortages? But, and this is just as important, the standards also require a story. They have to discuss their specific risks and, crucially, what their plan is to deal with them. And that second part, the plan, that's where things get really interesting. This is where companies have to show their cards and reveal their strategies for surviving in a world with less and less water. So let's check out 2 of the most powerful ways they're doing it. The first major strategy is a huge mental shift. It's about stopping to think of water as a disposable ingredient and starting to treat it like a precious, reusable asset. And this is the whole idea behind what are called closed-loop systems. So picture this. A factory captures the water it uses, treats it right there on site, and then puts it straight back into the manufacturing process. It's genius. By recycling water and making their machines way more efficient, companies can dramatically cut down on how much new water they have to pull from the environment. And this isn't just good for the planet. It directly lowers their costs and protects them from local water shortages.
Now, the second strategy is, I think, even more creative. Instead of just figuring out how to use less water inside the factory, what if you could just redesign the product itself so it doesn't need as much water to begin with?
This is a perfect example of how a problem can actually spark some amazing innovation. I mean, we're seeing a flood of new products like solid shampoo bars, which have almost no water in them, or those super concentrated laundry detergents that do the exact same job with way less liquid. This kind of strategy tackles the water risk right at the source, and it can even open up entirely new markets for products that people really love.
So let's zoom back out. We've got a major business risk, we have a standard for how to report on it, and we have some really clear strategies for dealing with it. What does this all actually add up to in the real world?
Remember this number. This whole thing isn't just about shampoo and soap. The SASB standards provide this same level of detailed guidance for 77 different industries, everything from mining to tech. It's this massive global effort to make these invisible environmental and social risks totally visible on a financial statement. And here is the bottom line. When every company has to report on water risk using the same rulebook, investors can finally compare them. Apples to apples. For the very first time, they can see exactly who has a solid plan and who's just ignoring the problem. That kind of transparency is an incredibly powerful force in the market. It pushes money towards companies that are built to last and pressures entire industries to step up their game. Which, of course, leaves us with one last really important question. We now have this incredible framework for transparency. Companies have to come clean about their risks and their strategies. But just talking about it is only the first step. So who's going to make sure they actually follow through? Is it the investors voting with their money? Is it governments creating new rules? Or is it us, the consumers, choosing to buy from the companies that are actually designing for a more sustainable future? The conversation is finally out in the open,